What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Black Belt Business Podcast. I'm your host, Eliot Marshall, and it is my goal with each episode of this podcast to share the stories, strategies, tactics, tools, and resources that will help you establish or grow your martial arts school. The Black Belt Business Podcast is brought to you by Easton.Online. You can find all of our digital courses, martial arts curriculums, and resources designed to help you enhance your business at Easton.Online. So without further ado, let's jump into the episode.
And
Fellas, back to another Easton.Online podcast. And man, we just learned a little bit. Jordan, can you do that again for the audience real fast?
Whether the weather be cold or whether the weather be hot, we'll be together whatever the weather, whether we like it or not.
Let's go. Let's go. This is how actors warm up.
Get this guy a record deal.
There was one of our assignments was we had to write our own vocal warm up. So like I wrote my own rap that I used like before all of my performances to warm up my voice.
All right. Hell yeah.
It was
Anyway,
pretty good.
That's where we are today. Welcome back to the Easton.Online podcast, everyone. A couple of housekeeping notes. If you find this podcast helpful, useful, we would love a share. Send it to your friends, send it to your other academy owners. Leave a review wherever you are listening. YouTube, a clip, whatever podcast player you are on, because we are in the business of helping people, and if we can help, then that would be great. So, let's jump in. Jordan, new job.
Fully new job. Yeah.
You were the GM of Longmont, and now you are the program director of all of the kids. A transition. Mm-hmm. How you been? What's it been like?
Man, I'd say for like the last month, 5 weeks or so, it's been awesome. I would say, I think maybe the last time we spoke, I was still juggling both hats, where I was still running the school and we had officially announced that I was the kids program director. So I felt like I was kind of just treading water at that point, not really doing a whole lot well on either side, like just trying to keep my head above water and make sure things were going. But it was a very necessary part of the process on the program director side. I did make it to all of the schools in that first quarter before officially taking off my GM hat and putting it on Professor Phil. And that was really important. It was the information gathering process. Everybody was really hungry for feedback and wanted me to tell them what I thought, what to do. But Alex and I talked a lot about this, that it was going to be really important for me to observe and see where we all were before I could talk about where we were going. And even I didn't fully appreciate that until I went to all of the schools, because it was very informative. It became very clear to me what we could focus on first in the next quarter. And I think April 1st was where we officially pulled the trigger, and it was like we announced to the staff in Longmont, hey, if you would typically talk to Jordan for something, now you're talking to Phil. And since then, it's been amazing for me. It's been like layers of an onion peeling off and shedding an old skin and immersing myself in a new one. And it's been really rewarding and really fulfilling, and like slightly ego crushing, but in a really good way. Like something that even though it stings, I observe it, lean into it, and let it pass.
Ian said it last podcast about going away on vacation for the first time when you're a general manager, right? He was petrified to take a vacation because like the academy would crumble without him, obviously, in his mind. And then it does better, and then you're like, oh my God, I'm not needed.
Yeah.
Right? Like they don't need me anymore.
Yeah.
So a little bit like that, I'm assuming, right? Like
it's a little bit like that, but then also just, like it's been very strategic the way that we've passed things off to Phil to create an environment where everybody is looking to him in the way that they used to look to me, as the leader of the school. And so, lately, if you've been at the Longmont school, like you just have not seen me that much.
Right.
Like I've been creeping in to teach, and then sliding out when I'm done, like not sticking around to train as much, training in other schools more, just because like even though everybody knows that I'm no longer the guy, I have been for 3 years.
Still the only guy they knew.
Right, exactly. So they can't help it. Like
Right.
somebody was asking me about a gi the other day, and I was like, hey, you can't talk to me about that anymore. Like they can't help themselves. So I have to like remove myself from the situation to give the school the opportunity to develop an identity without me. You know, that's really what it is.
Explain our program director role.
Sure.
You know, because we have more roles than most schools.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because we have multiple locations. So explain that. Explain not just as the kids program director, any program director. What's your role?
Well, I think any program director at Easton, I think there's a lot of ways to express this, but the way that I see it, this is multifaceted, and I'll try and be concise. But it's really about being the person that can elevate their perspective and take the bird's eye view on the program, right? Like the GMs, the DHs, they can get so immersed in the water that they're swimming in, it can be difficult for them to see it. Whereas the program director can have that elevated perspective, an outside perspective, to ensure the quality of the product, the quality of the program. And I would say, even from my general manager perspective, without visiting all the schools, I don't know that I fully understood the value of that, right? So I think that's part of it, is having that elevated perspective. And with that perspective comes the ability to give really valuable feedback that otherwise wouldn't be there. Like I would say the GMs and the DHs, their primary purpose is execution and accountability. Right, like they are
and community.
In community, yeah.
Right.
I mean, and that's part of it, right? But there's so much day to day that they have to react to. They don't have the time to work on the business versus in the business. So, you know, like if you go back to the E-Myth books, like he talks about this all the time. You know, like I don't think I've ever gone through a business podcast or a business book that doesn't reference like Michael Gerber and those books, and you know, they're classics, right? And he talks about this all the lot. Like you have to find time to work on the business, but in the business we're in, there's so much day to day, it's very difficult to do that. So the program director, with their elevated perspective, has the ability to work on the business, to work on the product, to work on the systems that train the people. And then the DHs, the department heads, and the GMs, they can execute those systems. And so I think the role is designed to be very symbiotic with the other positions at Easton.
Phipps, for you are a Longmont DH.
Yep.
What was Jordan's transition like for you, right? Because like at most martial arts schools, which we'll just call, even though we're a big organization with 7 schools, there's still the Longmont school, and that's your home school. Mm-hmm. And like that's where you love. It's okay, we can see it, right? Like you love Longmont because that's where you are all the time. And now the leader leaves and goes on to do something else. And sometimes this can be very chaotic. You know, this can be very chaotic for the school, for the staff there, everything. What was that like from your perspective?
Seamless. It was seamless. I know it wasn't seamless on the back end, like working that transition. Like Jordan said, it was hard to get people on the same page. Like, hey, Jordan isn't the person to go talk to right now. But because we knew this was coming down the pipe for a while, like we kind of.
So hold on, let me ask. I'm going to cut you off for a second. I know you knew. Mm-hmm. Did all the staff know?
No, but all the staff is known longer than before the transition was complete, right? We announced it to the staff, like
January.
It was very early
February
on.
or something like that.
And so as that process started unfolding, as a DH, like my number one focus was like shoring up our communication as a department within Longmont, right? Because things were going to be I don't want to even say very, but they were going to be somewhat messy at the top with the transition, and it's unclear. It wasn't always clear, like, who do I talk to in this moment? I wanted to make sure that as a department, all the communication, all the issues, they were coming to me. And right, if they were too high level for me to figure out or to handle, then I would take it to Jordan and Phil. But because we were directing the communication to me, I was able to handle all those problems. from my day-to-day experience, it was just like one day Phil's the one who's telling me about things going on in the academy. It was that seamless. On a personal level, because I'm so close with Jordan, and Jordan is the one who brought me into Longmont and honestly brought me into a lot of the things that I do at Easton.
I would say Jordan's the one who brought you in.
Yes,
right?
100%.
Jordan needed more work.
Yes,
and it was filming, right, with me and Alex and us, and so Jordan was your in.
Absolutely, yeah, and he just kept pushing me into the next thing, right? Like I was a kickboxing coach in Boulder. I had not coached Muay Thai. I was just a kickboxing coach in Boulder, and he's like, "Hey, come to this academy, and now you're doing Muay Thai, and now you're doing all the Muay Thai classes. Now you're the de facto DH," and then like just pushing me into that, and then on the Easton.Online side as well, like just pushing me into roles.
Look at you, buddy.
Yeah,
oh, yeah.
No, I was just thinking, thank God for Phipps, man, because that striking program would have been non-existent had it not been for him at Longmont, because I don't know anything like when it comes to Muay Thai for sure. If we hadn't had him in Longmont, like it just would not be what it is today. So I'm just so grateful for you.
I appreciate that, buddy. And to wrap up the thought, so that was weird working relationship, because now like my supervisor in the academy, the person I report to, goes from being like someone who's a very close friend who like I owe a great deal of like my own success to them, to this person who I didn't really know Phil very well, but Phil's a great guy, and he's made this transition super, super easy. And so on the personal level, it was like a weird, like the difference in our relationships, but on a professional level, like literally seamless.
But yeah, I can totally see that, especially like on the personal level, like because talking to your homie, you know, your homie's your boss.
Yeah.
Right? It's different than just talking to your boss.
Yep.
And now you got to start watching how you speak a little more, maybe, right? Like the joke doesn't land the same, you know, and you right, like impossibly. So, man, I think, and we got a lot of questions today in the Easton.Online meeting about like this DH role. Like it doesn't seem like a lot, right? You know, and I think you nailed it. It's the communication, right? Like it's really, really the communication. Like sure, because you know, the staff train, like the curriculum's online, right? Everyone has the curriculum, like they can go watch it. Signing into class is a lot of the front desk.
Yep.
But it's when there's issues and problems, it doesn't go to the GM, right? It doesn't go to the GM. It goes to the DH. And that's such an important piece there, because the GM is getting enough issues and problems from the bigger perspective picture. That's why you have this layer, this like buffer in between, almost like a teenage older brother when you're 9. Right? When you're 9 and you have a 17-year-old brother, you know, like you're like the DH can be like that brother, be like, all right, man, I'll take you to the store real fast.
Yep.
You know, rather than you having to go bother mom and dad.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was a very to all of our clients. I hope you're listening to this episode, and because he nailed it right there. I'll talk about it beforehand, but he nailed it right there of that DH role. And then now you are not really in a working relationship anymore, other than here with Easton.Online.
Yes and no, because of my position on the marketing side of things too.
Okay.
Like Jordan and I met today for lunch to talk about upcoming production projects. So we do have a working relationship, but now it's completely different. Like now, you know, Jordan's no longer my supervisor, and it's like we're right here. You know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I'm actually really, really excited about like how our working relationship is going to develop now. Like, it feels like we're partners in crime. So I'm excited. I'm really excited. So because there's a lot of.
Let's be clear what just happened.
Yeah,
20 minutes
sorry.
ago. So 20 minutes ago, we're sitting here getting everything set up for Easton.Online, and they're talking for this podcast, and they're talking about needing a new lens.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly
And then
right.
immediately, I don't know what I said that made you guys think of it. And you're like, let's ask Eliot. And like you had like this conniving partner in crime look on your face, and we're like, yo, can we buy this?
Yeah, it was totally a plan that we hatched earlier, and we were like, this is going to be the quickest way to get what we need. But no, it's good. I mean, just for a long time, I think Phipps and I have had, because we both have, I mean, you just laid it all out. Like we have similar backgrounds and experiences, like especially when it comes to video production. And I think for a long time, we've seen a lot of potential that we want to build, but then weren't in the right seats to necessarily execute. And then now it's like, oh man, we're here. Like, let's do this. And so it's really, really exciting to just get to execute.
I hope if any of our staff is listening to this next question, I'm going to ask it. I hope we don't hurt anybody's feelings. But I think it's very important for us all to understand that we do the academies very well. I'll take a bet. I'll take a bet and say we probably do them the best of anybody in the country. You know, I'll run that bet. But we could always do better. And we make mistakes. And we do things wrong. And we can improve. And my question to you again now, Jordan, is when you travel to the other schools, when you've traveled here this quarter, what would you see is the most common improvement that could be made with our kids' programs?
With our kids' programs?
Yes.
Oh, well, I can speak this
and that's
directly.
why I hope nobody takes offense if they're listening. You know,
I'm being pretty transparent about everything that I'm trying to work on with all of the schools. So first and foremost, I'll say this: like when I went to all of the schools for the first time, what I noticed is that everybody's got the right ingredients for amazing kids programs. Meaning we have great coaches who really care about the kids. Like nowhere did I go where there was like somebody who was checked out, phoning it in, didn't care about what they were doing.
Doing it for a comp membership.
None of that. None of that. Like everybody was there because they're passionate about Easton. They're passionate about the kids program and they love teaching. And what was really cool to see was that everybody had these little isms that were like kind of unique to them. Like Luma down in Castle Rock, like she has these interstitials throughout the class where she has like dance parties with the kids, you know? And like that's a way to get the kids to get the jitters out and pull them back in and get focused. And I thought that was really cool. And I think every teacher, whether you're teaching adults or kids, there's an art to it. Right? And just as you have to find your own expression of jiu-jitsu, you have to find your own game where it's going to be somewhat idiosyncratic to you. I think to be a skillful teacher, you have to find your voice. You have to find your game, so to speak, as a teacher. And whenever I see teachers doing that, it gets me pumped. Or Professor Mickle in Arvada, right? Like he did this really cool thing where he was pulling different kids in front of the room to run a piece of the warm-up. You know, so if like you're being a black belt partner, you're exemplifying our 4 principles and you're being a leader in the class, then you get to be in front of the class and like be a leader.
You said exemplify our 4 principles, just in case anybody's wondering, what are our 4 principles?
Focus, respect, effort, and discipline.
Fred.
Yeah. So we like to say you got to keep your best friend Fred with you at all times. We say that more to the littles.
Right.
Yeah.
Focus, respect, effort, and discipline. The 4 principles of the kids program.
Exactly. I don't think there's a class I teach where I don't work those in somehow, some way, you know? And then I'm trying to think of another one, but yeah, I see just like a lot of those things everywhere. But
Can I stop you for a second?
Yeah, sure.
I think, and now bringing this to you, Phipps, too, with like one of the things that you just said, Jordan, was you have to find like your game when you're teaching. And that's really hard for people because you come up mimicking, right? You watch your teacher and then, but just like when you're doing jiu-jitsu or doing Muay Thai, you watch your teacher and learn directly from your teacher. But at some point, you have to develop. Okay, this is my shtick, right? And it's a shtick, right? It's a shtick of how you do it. How do you guys? I'm gonna take this question to Phipps for a second. How do you start to help the teachers develop their shtick?
That comes with repetitions. Like, to me, the first time I see someone, and that's kind of where I am right now as a department head, like I will trust the other coaches to train up a new coach, right? Most of their shadows, we make them do 20, 30 shadows before they can teach, and most of them are going to be done with other coaches. But I'm going to come in toward the end of that process, and you're going to shadow a couple times with me, and I'm going to make sure that it's all tight. But it's always like the same product at that point, right? And if some people are a little bit better, some people are a little bit like they need more work, but like they haven't found themselves, haven't found their voice, haven't found their character as a coach. And then I as soon as we finish that process, I just recommend get reps, right? Cover as many classes as you can, take as many classes as you can, get as many reps as possible. And I come find them like 3, 4, 5 months later, and now you're seeing like them be them. And it really comes from, like Jordan kind of touched on this, giving them freedom. Like, I don't demand that you walk in and you carry yourself like I carry myself and you coach like I coach, because that's me and that's how I approach this. And students are going to respond to that, but some of them aren't going to respond to, the way Jordan teaches way more than the way I teach, or the way, one of my coaches shows a technique, or the way they banter with you, or the jokes they make, right? And that's who you want to go to more often, and that's great. Like, I want to create that for students, where it's like, I don't want to be the coach for everybody. I love when people love my classes, and I want everyone who comes to my classes to love them, but I don't have to be the coach you love the most.
You shouldn't put them off, right? It shouldn't be like off-putting, like, ugh.
Yes.
Right? But you don't have to be their favorite teacher.
No,
and
not
you
at
can't be. No matter how good you are, right? No matter how good you are, there's going to be people that are like, you know what? I like that guy better. I like that other guy better. And that's okay. I think you have to realize that as a teacher.
Yeah.
Right? And not get all butthurt by it.
For sure. As the DH as well, like, if I just make 10 copies of myself, well, if people don't like the way I coach or the way I interact with you, then like, you're not going to like anybody in our program, and then you're not going to want to train with us.
Right.
But if I have a bunch of different,
that's how you become a cult.
Exactly.
That's
100%.
how it becomes very cultish.
I want individuals, and we're all following the same principles, but in the end, you get to be yourself when you're on the mat.
Right. All right, back to you, Jordan. I'm going to ask the question again. What could we improve the most?
So what we're like this quarter, when I go to all the schools, the feedback that I'm giving is all through the lens of pacing and structure, right? Because what I did notice across the board at all the kids' classes is, one, I have to keep. Let me back up for a second. When I first came into this role, I had this delusion of grandeur that I was going to create this one-size-fits-all approach for all of the kids' classes, that I was going to establish a structure and a format that everybody was going to follow. It was going to get us all on the same page. It was going to better allow us to scale, to create systems, to create this product, all get rowing in the same direction. But then I realized that every school, your kids' class is going to be influenced by a myriad of different factors. One, your demographic, like what time are your kids getting out of school, right? Like when you go to Denver, there are kids classes going on at the same time as adults, right? And you go to all the other schools, and that is a no-no. That does not happen, right? Because the energy is such a mismatch, right? But because of the demographic of adults in Denver and where the school is located, having those kids classes sandwiched parallel with the adult classes is what needs to happen. Yep. Because, man, the adult classes at the same time as the kids classes, I've been there, are packed, right? Or you go to a school like Littleton, and I was just talking to Phipps about this, and from 4 to 6 p.m., it's primetime kids time, but they've got to serve all these different demographics like within that time.
Explain
and
that.
So for example, they've got little tigers from 4 to 4:30. So they've got the little ones, right? And then that area, school gets out a little bit later. So for the bigger kids, they start at 4:30, but they want to have like this big intermediate class, and then they've got like a 7 to 9 fundamentals tigers class, and then they've got like a 10 to 13 big tigers class. And these are all happening on the mat parallel to each other. Well, the two Tigers classes are happening at a different time, but each one of those Fundies Tigers classes is happening at the same time as the intermediate, right? So they're trying to serve these different demos and age groups. It's not a big mat. It's not. Like, I mean, it's I don't know what the square footage of it is,
the whole space is like 3,000.
Yeah, you walk in the school, you're on the mats almost. Yeah. Like, I mean, and they run a beautiful operation. Like, it looks fantastic in there. They have optimized the space. They've got it all figured out. Like, I'm so impressed with the mechanics of how that school runs. But basically, I'm saying all of this just because, like, I realized quickly that a one-size-fits-all approach wasn't going to work, right? But much like how we train up instructors and everything like that, I do think it's about establishing targets and models, something to aim at. right? Like hitting the target is not the point, but aiming at something, a unified target, right, is going to more skillfully align us, right? And we talked about giving the instructors freedom to find their own voice. I think that's important, but, you know, if I gave Phipps a blank piece of paper and I said, create a work of art, there's so much freedom there that he wouldn't even know where to start. You know, it's like scrolling through Netflix. There's like so many choices. We'll spend 30 minutes just trying to pick something. But if you had 3 movies to choose from, you'd probably choose within 2 minutes, right? So if there's some way to define something to aim at.
Come upstairs and try to help me with that.
Right? To create a framework, you know, then because I think that, you know, freedom comes from limits, right? Like if there was no limitations, the concept of freedom wouldn't occur to you, right? Like if you lived on a planet where the sun never set, would you understand darkness, right? And so to find your own way, to find your own voice, to find your character, your style, you need to use creativity. And creativity is best applied to problem solving. Like a lot of times we think that we use our brains to solve problems, but we're actually using creativity, right? So limits create challenges, and we need to problem solve those challenges. And in order to problem solve, we need to use creativity. So thus, creativity comes from limits in my mind, right? So by setting the target, saying like, look, we're all going to aim at this. And the way that you do it is going to be a little bit different than the way that this schools do it. But we're all aiming at the same thing, and you're going to use your own style and your own creativity to aim at that. And that's really what we're trying to work on this quarter is I'm trying to define those models of pacing and structure. Like you said it, you think like tempo and pacing and class structure is everything.
So let's just break down some of these terms. When you say pacing and tempo and structure, tell me, when you're looking at a class, what does that mean?
Got it. So I will use the class that we've developed in Longmont as the model. And there is more than one way to skin a cat, right? So
I love that term. My uncle used to say it to
me. I know, but why would we skin a cat?
But why would we skin a cat?
Right.
My wife gets so mad at me
whenever
I say it.
The kids got really mad at me one time when I said that. I said that in a class one time, and I had to spend half the class explaining to them that it was just a figure of speech. But they were so confused. They're like, why would you skin a cat? It makes no sense. And I'm like, you know what? Now that you pointed out, you're right. I've never known anybody to skin a cat.
Right.
And why would we do it multiple ways anyway?
It's to me, it's such an endearing term because my uncle said it. He's not alive anymore. He died.
Yeah.
So when I hear it, it gives me like this warm feeling. Yeah. I like to say it, and then I'm like, oh yeah, that's not the best saying.
Yeah.
You're picturing a house cat though.
I am picturing it.
You take out a tiger, panther, you're gonna skin it.
You're gonna skin that.
And there might be a couple ways to do it.
Yeah,
there we go. Now I'll explain that. Yeah, if you're like a safari hunter or something like that. But
all right, so I want to ask for let's go to Phipps for a second,
and then we'll come back to the pacing and structure.
I want to know the pacing and structure of a Muay Thai class, and then we'll go to a kids class.
Sounds great.
So what do you call and what are you looking at when you're looking at pacing and structure of a Muay Thai and striking class?
You know, at our meeting earlier today, Jordan and I talked about this like as a broad concept, and him and I are on the same page of how pacing of a class should go. It's just a little bit different for the kids, just the things that fill those spaces. But you think about it like as a story is told or as a roller coaster goes, right? There's going to be some immediate highs, and then you come to some lows, and then you come to a crescendo, right? And like the climax of the class, and you come down. And so that can change in a Muay Thai class. That could be so many different things. But you're going to start off by, your preamble. This is what class is about today. This is what we're going to focus on. We start our warm-up. That's when we start picking up a little bit, right? And by the end of the warm-up, we're all sweating, we're all breathing hard. All right, now we're going to bring it down. Now it's either partner up, go get the pads and the gloves, or partner up and put all your gear on. And that's going to take, like, that transition there is 3 to 4 minutes, right? And so 3 to 4 minutes, everyone's heart rate's coming back down. They're kind of chatting. We're through the first big push of class, and then we're going to slowly start building up. And depending on how class...
That's so interesting what you said right there, because There's no putting pads on in jiu-jitsu, right? So that's not part of your pacing at all. When I'm thinking about like the timing of my class, I'm not like they're going to be sitting there putting their shit on for 3 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. But in the, if I want to talk about jiu-jitsu as well, like from coaching Nogi, it's the same thing. Like we start off with our warm-up drill. We pick it up and then we bring it back down. Now I'm going to explain our standing technique, right? And then we're going to start hitting it, and then we're going to build into a flow, and that's going to pick up, and then we'll come back, we'll look at the ground technique, and then we'll flow it all together. So there's still those ebbs and flows, and it's the same thing in Muay Thai. And sometimes you're not even going to do pads, or sometimes you're not even going to do drilling, or sometimes in like an intermediate or higher level class, there's probably going to be some aspect of live training as well. So that's worked in as well. But the whole thing is like, I explain this to my kickboxing instructors. Bring their heart rate all the way up, right? And then give them time to bring it back down. It's just this game of like almost HIIT style training. Heart rate comes up, heart rate comes down. And when the heart rate's coming down, we keep their mind busy. We make them think, right? But if you just start off, I'm cold, I'm not even sweating yet, I'm not breathing hard, and you're just going to give me something to think about right away, you're probably starting off a little bit too slow, even if you're giving golden concepts. Like even if you're teaching the best stuff that there is, if you just start out teaching,
you got to break through the bullshit.
Yes.
You got to break through the bullshit. You got to break through their bad day. You got to whatever has been happening in their day. You got to break that out first, right? And teaching right out the gate is never, or if you are teaching something, it's so simple that they're just doing it, right? There's no like, all right, hold on, where's my right hand go?
Exactly. Exactly.
So that's that's an important key with a beginning of any class, right? Like the pacing of a kid's class, a striking class, a kid's class, a jiu-jitsu class. I don't care what you're teaching. If you come in hot right away with the instruction, you could lose them all. Right? You can lose them all right in the beginning, I feel like.
I mean, same thing too. If I come in and I'm like, all right, we're going to get our 100 kicks in right now, like as fast as you can. It's like, bro, we haven't even warmed up. I'm not even sweating yet. You want me to throw 100 kicks high speed?
Right. It's like doing blast double legs in a jiu-jitsu class, right?
Exactly.
You can't just go, all right, we're boom. No. So kids class, Jordan.
Yeah, so I really like using the story roller coaster analogy just because it relates to my experience. And
you guys are so much better than me. It's not even fucking funny.
What are you talking about?
You start to talk about this, you got it's really cool for me to hear because you just have such good answers, and it's solid.
It helps that we talked about it 2 hours ago.
Yeah, literally.
We set you up perfect.
Yeah, we didn't even know. Yeah, we didn't know we were going to.
I just laid a layup like CNN and Trump the other night, right? Like they just laid a layup for that guy, right? Not to get political, but it's like, man, like the guy, don't like the guy, but they just laid a layup for him. God,
we didn't know we were rehearsing earlier, but apparently we were.
Anyway, go ahead.
But yeah, so I really like that analogy, and there's different components of a class that I think inherently lend themselves to like higher or lower energy. Like we all have mat chats in our kids' classes, right? And I think every instructor is probably familiar with this. I think it's pretty common.
If you're not doing a mat chat in your kids' class, you need to start like yesterday.
You do need to start, and then I would also pay attention to where you put it in the class.
Yes,
because for whatever reason, it felt like it was tradition mostly that we would always have the mat chats at the beginning of our kids' classes. And I remember when we first started teaching kids classes in Longmont, we had the mat chat in the beginning,
like
right?
Right away?
Well, not right away, but we would do a warm up
and
then bring them all in, and we would have a mat chat.
Right.
And I can imagine why we might have that. Some of the topics we might talk about, like if we want to talk about being a black belt partner, it really frames and sets up the class, right? But if we're talking about hygiene, well, we actually need to be talking about hygiene at the end of class because that's when those little squirts need to start taking showers, like they're dirty and sweaty and messy and they're little bioterrorists, so they need to be showering after class. That's when we need to be talking about hygiene. You talk about it at the beginning of class, they have forgot by the time they get off the mat. But this is like we warm up and we try and build the energy up, and then if you do a mat chat in the beginning, it's like, and now we're going to have to do all that work to bring it back up again, right? And I always thought there was a reason it was there, but I remember that early on we were in a kids meeting with a previous program director, And one of the instructors from Denver actually was saying that they had started doing the mat chat at the end of class and really liked it, thought it was really effective. And I can't remember why, but it had something to do with like the COVID pod training system, like the way that schedule was mapped out. That was where they needed to put it for that to work. I'm not really sure. And then I remember the PD at the time going, "Oh, that's a great idea. I wish I had thought of that. I love that. I'm stealing that." And so then that was like, oh, so we can move these things around if we think there's a better place to put it. So I was like, well, you know what? We always have like our end of class speeches and the adult program and everything like that. And
that's what I was just thinking. I do
right.
my mat chat
Yeah.
after we train.
Right. Everybody does it. And there's some science behind this
Yeah,
too, because
yeah.
after you've had like a good intense cardio workout, your brain is more receptive. So they're going to absorb the lessons after the class much better than in the middle of it, right? So that's a good example of where you can take a component part of the class and you can move it somewhere and it will be, you know, it'll help with the ups and downs. So in Longmont, we like to warm up and then we get right into teaching the standing technique. And then we start drilling the standing technique. And, you know, this builds in energy. And then when it's time to train, it's like that first climax of the first act of the class, right? And we do all these standing rounds and we really push them. And then Coach Rivers really good about talking about this. Like when the training is over and we tell them to get a water break, we say, hey, this isn't just you rehydrating. This is not just you catching your breath. This is time to transition and reflect about what you've just done. Think about what went well, what didn't go well. You know, how can you become more skillful at this? And how can you take that intention into the work that we're about to do again, right? And so we bring it back down, and you would think like, oh, well, once you raise the energy, don't you want to keep it up there? Well, we talked about a Jon Stewart quote earlier, right? Like, if everything is amplified, we hear nothing. And he's not talking about pacing or structure, but think about a roller coaster that would only go downhill without any twists or turns. It wouldn't be as exciting as one that's like up, down, left, right, loop-de-loop, whatever. And so by mimicking that rhythm in a class, I think it's really beneficial. So we bring it back down and then we work it back up. And I always try and make like that second round of training like even bigger and better than the first one. You know, it's like if you guys were at a 7 when we did standing technique, now we're going to take it up to a 9. And there's all kinds of like little things that I like to do to build that energy. But also, like, if you try and sustain the energy for a long period of time, it's difficult to do for both the students and the kids. So like being a hype man for the instructor, you know, like if you watch me teach a kids class, like a comment that I get often is like, how do you have a voice after the class? And they're thinking about these bursts where I'm pushing as much air through my lungs as I possibly can, and I'm sweating, and my voice is as loud as I can possibly be, and I'm hyping up the kids, and I'm amping them up. I'm shouting out their names, shouting out their nicknames, and I'm saying, who's going to show me sports action? Who's going to show me something I would buy tickets for? Who's going to show me who deserves to be at the top of the card? Like, all these things, and they keep working for these coveted spots. I would not be able to sustain that for longer than like the 10-15 minutes we train. But as we bring it back down and then work back up, it's punctuated, it's more impactful, you know. And you'll notice this, like anybody who's ever taken a Peloton class is absolutely familiar with how they structure ups and downs. And you'll always notice the end of the class is like when you work the hardest. You're always ramping it up, bringing it back down, ramping it up, bringing it back down. We think of that from a fitness perspective and like what that does for us, interval training or whatever, but we're not thinking about like the entertainment factor, the how you can get sucked up in the energy and how it creates the fun.
You just said a massive word here with when it comes to teaching. It's got to be entertaining.
Yeah.
It has to be entertaining. Yeah. To think that you better be the best, you better be John Donaher.
Mm-hmm.
That where your shit is just so good that people come to learn from you because you're a guru. But that's a form of entertainment. That's still a form of entertaining, right? But if you don't want to have an entertaining presentation, then you're gonna blow the class. People only care so much about the actual jiu-jitsu or the actual Muay Thai. Most of it is how it makes them feel. while they're doing it. Well, you know, how do I feel while doing it, and then how do I feel when done? And that's a massive part of pacing and structure and teaching this class. You've got to be entertaining.
Sweat, smile, learn.
Yeah.
We talk about that all the time. The sweat part takes care of itself. The learning takes care of itself. The smiling piece, there's more than one way to accomplish that. Like, you go to one of your classes, like, you're really good at telling stories, bringing humor into it. I mean, you will bring everybody in and interrupt everything and be like, okay, guys, you guys got to hear this story, you know? Yeah. But, like, anybody who's taken one of your classes absolutely loves it because they had just a great fucking time. And they got better at jiu-jitsu and they got a workout, you know? I mean, and you really want all three. And it's a balance. It's a balance for sure.
And not everyone, like you were saying before, can do it like me.
No.
Right? If you start trying to tell
have
stories
to find
like
your own
me,
way.
You've got to, first of all, I think the storytelling thing, you've got to have a lot of time in the game. Right? You have to have a lot of time in the game to tell stories. Like, you can't tell a story from when you were a white belt when you were a blue belt. Like, it doesn't go that well.
You mean you have to have, when you say a lot of time in the game, you don't mean experience storytelling, you mean martial experience.
Martial arts experience.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, right? It's just not, I don't find it to be, I never used to tell stories until I've gone through 30 years now of martial arts. Right? Because a couple of years just isn't enough to, like, stop, you know, because in my opinion, and I learned it from Henzo, right? Henzo is an amazing storyteller in the middle of class, but he's relating it to a time or a place when like the whole world changed, right? Like, you're like, everyone was together. Carlinhos was over here and Hyatt, you know, right? It's like, yo, dude, those are like the greats of, you know, so to tell a story outside of that is hard to stop a class for, in my opinion. But so if everyone tried to do it like I did it gets butchered, right? It gets butchered. And I probably can't teach a kids class like you do.
Right.
Or a strike. This goes all back to allowing people, but there's limits. I really loved what you said. Limits makes creativity, because you have to get creative in a space.
Yes.
Right? You know, I got 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever that time frame is. It's got to look like this, but I can do this however it is I want to do this, which I think as I think about what you guys have said here, that is another just like nugget. Okay, I got to put limit, because we get so like freedom. And too much freedom is not good.
Right. Yeah. Too much choice kills the choice.
I hate Cheesecake Factory.
The menu is gigantic.
Yeah,
it's a catalog.
Right. It's like Netflix. It's like seeing Netflix's whole catalog. Like, what should I watch?
Yeah, it's a pain. I hate it.
How do you feel, Jordan, now that this transition's fully complete?
I feel awesome. I love it. I mean, I think I'm really enjoying this role. I mean, I feel like I just got started. Like, that first quarter that I talked about when we started recording was very much information gathering, but I didn't really feel like I was doing much yet. And I would say once April started and, you know, I took off one hat and put on a different one, fully immersed myself, it feels like I'm actually getting started. And, you know, I have a creative background. And, you know, this role, working on the business rather than in it, is much more fulfilling for me. But it suits my temperament, you know, and I don't think everybody's like that. Like, Peter actually told me that the program director job sounds like a nightmare to him. Like, he said he would hate it. He was like, I would rather be a GM. Like, I would rather be the guy, like, managing and running and executing. And I'm like, awesome.
He's good at that.
Yeah, he's very good.
Very good.
Very good. Mike says he's one of the best he's ever seen. Like, not even just within Easton, but just like one of the best operators.
Peter's a very good operator.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I think he's very good.
Yeah, I hate it. I've been thinking about this a lot. I can't stand it. Like, I want to be like, yo, we should do this. Like, I really think we should do this. Like, and then like go figure it out a little bit, almost like Easton.Online. Like, yo, we should do this. And then take years to figure it out and butcher it along the way. And then finally get Mike to see it and be like, yo, come on, come fix all these mistakes, you know, like come do this. Because I hate operating, can't stand it. I like, you know, but that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
Like, and it's good for you to, for example, not like managing so much, and for Peter to not want to be creative.
Absolutely.
That's totally fine.
And, you know, I mean, I don't want to give the impression that I didn't like, you know, running Longmont or being a GM or anything like that, because look, I think any dream job, you know, there's going to be an aspect of it that is still going to be work and is not going to be your favorite part of the job. Like, it's just impossible. If it is a job, there's going to be something that you're like, I got to do this or whatever. I would just say as the school grew, I found myself more and more having to deal with things that, you know, I did not enjoy. And I think that's pretty common. But I will still say that, like, that experience of starting the school, opening the school, for all of the fulfillment and enjoyment, for all of the pain and all of the stress, like, I wouldn't trade it for anything. And if I had to rewind and do it all over again, I would do it, because I don't think it, at that point in time, and I still feel this way about those 3 years, it was the most purpose-driven and fulfilling era of my life up until that point. Like, I had never had such a purpose bigger than myself to immerse myself in, a life of service for others. And as stressful as that would be for me individually sometimes, and like the way I'm wired, I valued it immensely. And going into it, I knew that, you know, dealing with the people problems, because, man, I remember the stuff Mike had to deal with in Boulder. You know, I was there sitting next to him some days when I could just see his face melting, just wanting people to appreciate his work, and they just didn't get it. You know, they could only see inside their own selfish perspective, and they just didn't get how hard he was working for everybody else. And, you know, that's an aspect of it that is very hard to understand until you're in that role. But still, I knew that was going to happen, and I valued it for how difficult I knew it would be, because I place a high premium on personal growth. And I know that you've got to do things that are hard if you want to grow. And it's important to me to be a builder in this world, to do things that contribute to the world in a positive way, however small and insignificant that may be. I want to do something that contributes. Yeah, I'll never know, and that's fine. But just...
I'm saying you'll never know how large it is.
Yeah, I'll never know how large it is. But just being able to live a life where every day I knew I was waking up and I was contributing to someone, somewhere, somehow, whether it was a kid, a student, a staff, something, you know, to be able to wake up every day and work for an organization that I believe in is so valuable. Like, I've been rekindling my relationship with my dad, and I've been telling him a lot about what we do. And he looked at me one time and says, "Seems like you've actually found a company that cares about its people. That's really rare." And I was like, yeah. And I'm holding on because I love it so much. So I wanted to say all that because I don't want anybody to get to the wrong idea, you know. But I will say that the contrast in this transition, it's been, it feels like shedding a skin.
Right.
You know, like I shed a skin, and I no longer have that tight old skin that was constricting me, and, you know, and now I've got a lot more freedom, and I feel good.
I appreciate definitely hearing a company that cares.
Yeah.
You know, because I think it's, for me, it's cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to make any bones about it. We make money, you know, and I live a great life because of the company. But I would hate to make money and have that be the focus, right? And have it be like, well, all right, we got to let that guy go because I'm not making enough money.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that would be terrible for me. Phipps, how's it without Jordan?
The academy?
Yeah.
I mean, like we already talked about it a little bit, but it's the same. You know, it really is the same. The transition was handled very well. I'll put it like that. So I don't think as soon as Jordan, especially when he stepped out of the role of the evening classes, I think the transition just like that sealed it. Like it finished the job. I have a unique perspective because, I'm a student, but I'm also a coach, and I also manage the Muay Thai department. And so, like, I hear a lot of different voices in the academy, and I haven't heard anything that would lead me to believe that, like, it hasn't been the same experience for everybody else as it has been for me, which is, again, seamless. And, I think it was hard for some people. I would say a good amount of people when Jordan did step out, like, I don't want to say completely because you're still there, right? But like completely because he
didn't die.
He gave up the advanced classes. He doesn't coach any adults anymore. But Phil's come in and he's endeared himself to the community, and like people can tell he's genuinely a good guy, and he obviously has killer jiu-jitsu, and like beyond anything else, like people appreciate that. So it's been easy.
Yeah, the being good at the martial art really helps. If you're a nice person and you're good at the martial art, that always helps with transition.
Smooths it out.
Right? It smooths it out. Because at the end of, they do want martial arts.
Yeah.
Right? They definitely want martial arts. That's why they're there. So if you, they even probably put up with you being a dick a little bit if you're really good, which, he's not, obviously. He's, a sweetheart of a guy. So, all right, guys. I know it was kind of Longmont focused, but I think we, got all over the place with it. So
absolutely,
man, that was really good. A couple closing thoughts. Again, like, share, send to your fellow martial arts academy owners. We have a ton of freebies on the website Easton.Online, and also in the show notes you will see a link to our retreat. Okay, our 3-day retreat that we're doing here in Colorado. You don't have to be an affiliate to do it. I believe the price is $797, so it might be $799. Whatever our marketing director said is a better price, but it's right there, So where half of the days are going to be spent in the classroom, going over specifics, in a room and handling all that, and then the other half of the day is going to be at an academy where you're going to get to experience the Longmont. Have the Longmont experience. Come see the chaos that is Denver on one night. And then have we decided what other school we're going to go to?
I think we're still sorting it out.
Yeah, we're still sorting it out. But then we're going to go to another school. So you can see just how each school kind of functions on its own. And kind of what you were talking about, Jordan, that creativity inside limits, right? Like there's no school like Denver. There's no school like Boulder. There's no school like Longmont. But they all have these limits on what has to happen. So I thought that was a really great explanation of what happens. So that's it, guys. Phipps, tell them where they can follow you, hit you up with any questions.
Instagram, MikeyMike_Phipps, and hit me up on Instagram. That's it.
Don't try to find Jordan.
Nope.
Don't try to find Jordan.
I'm a ghost.
He's done a very good job of getting himself off. We are Easton.Online, Easton_on. Oh, that was really bad to say. Getting himself off social media. Okay.
Oh wait, yeah. So I'm gonna have to go back and listen to that. I just clued into what he said. That's why you looked at me like that. God.
And then I caught it, and then we don't edit, so don't edit that out.
Oh, too good.
But so we are Easton_Online. The website is Easton.Online, and you can always hit me up at FireMarshal205 with any questions. I've been putting out a ton of content on my personal social media about the little things that we find helpful for running schools. So that's it, guys. We appreciate it. Hope you're doing well. Hope your school's doing well, and hoping that you are making this whole thing, this whole martial arts academy, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai thing grow in the world so that we can help more people. Peace.